Hey, this is Royce with AgriGrand, and today I'm going to show you how to make potting mix. First thing I'm going to show you is the main ingredients here. So I like to split my potting mix up into thirds. So here's the first third. This is coconut coir, and this stuff comes in bricks, and you have to hydrate it. So every brick gets a few gallons of water added to it, and then it just fluffs up. Usually I use another bucket of coconut coir, but this time we're going to use peat moss because I found some locally that was pretty inexpensive, and I just wanted to try a different potting mix for once. So the last third is rice hulls, and this stuff you can get from a homebrew supply on the internet at gardening websites. This stuff is pretty cheap. You can get a bale of it for around 50 bucks. And it puffs up, the whole bale puffs up to around 7 cubic feet. So you really get your money's worth out of it. And this is referred to as the aeration component of the potting mix. So lots of other people like to use perlite, or they like to use pumice stone if it's locally available. But I like to use rice hulls because they're biodegradable. They're cheap and easy to use. And then on top of the base, I'm gonna add some worm castings to it as well. I've only got about a third of a bucket here of worm castings. I would say it's about 10% of the whole mix. And these guys came from Third Day Worm Farm here in Pennsylvania. And what these are, well, after the worms eat and live in their little burrows, they kind of make little poops, and this is what comes out. Perfect fertilizer. And I'm gonna add a few micronutrients. This is biomin iron, so this is what we call chelated iron. The second micronutrient that I'm going to add here is boron, and this is in the form of solubor, which is a really common form of boron, and it's a boron attached to a sodium. Another important ingredient that I'm going to add is pulverized limestone. Some people call this ag lime, calcium carbonate in powder form. The thing about calcium and boron is that the roots of the plant, they have to actually get in contact with this to absorb it. So I'm going to add this to the bulk of the mix. And then what I'm going to do afterwards is rely on compost that I'm going to top dress. And it's going to supply the rest of the nutrients that this plant is going to need. This is one that I made myself. I like to make compost in these nice big fabric pots. I mix all my ingredients together and let them cook in here, and they get turned into really nice soil looking compost pretty quickly.
Let's start mixing.
Mention to you what situations you might want to use this in. So first is if you are a container gardener. If you maybe don't have a large enough area to have like an in-ground garden or a raised bed, you might just want to grow in pots. Convenient, you can start small plants in there. Another reason is if you want to start plants indoors. So this will let you grow them under artificial lights until the plants are ready to get transplanted outdoors, or during the winter, if you just get bored and you're tired of seeing nothing but snow outside, it's nice to have a nice living plant indoors.
I'm going to grab a shovel.
You can do it in a large tote, like maybe a 25-gallon. You can do this on a tarp. So this is around 15 to 20 gallons of potting mix. And the first thing that I'm going to add here is the limestone, ground up limestone. And I've got about a cup. And now I'm going to add both the boron and the chelated iron. So for this, I've got a jug of just plain tap water. And for the iron, I'm going to put in about 3 tablespoons. I'll dunk that right in the jug. And then I'm using a plant label to scoop the boron. I'm doing maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon, just a pinch. You don't need much. I'm going to pull out my secret weapon here, Xtherm 70. This stuff is a wetting agent. It's kind of like molasses consistency, and I'm just going to put in about a teaspoon there. This stuff is truly magical for hydrating soil. I'm using it because I think this peat moss is going to just really be hard to hydrate. Just shaking it up with that, with the Thermex. I'm going to just sprinkle it evenly on my soil. So the next thing I'm gonna do is grab some water from the hose. I'm back with the water. I got about 2.5 gallons here. I'm just gonna keep adding until I think I am pretty well hydrated. I think we reached optimum moisture here. So it feels wet when I touch it, and you're really not looking for a lot of moisture to squeeze out whenever you kind of press it between your hands. You just want it to hold a nice ball shape, and that should be perfect.
So what's next?
I've got my plant pot that I'm going to start some seeds in. And if you're wondering what I plan to grow in here, I think I'm going to do some zucchini. So this stuff, I'm just going to toss it right in there. There you go. Nice and settled. I'm going to leave about 1 inch just so I could come back later, and I'm going to grab whatever favorite compost I like to use. And I'm going to add about 1/2 inch to the surface. That's going to help the plant along, but all the nutrients inside this compost, as I water it, they're going to kind of filter down through the media, get trapped in there, and then become available for the plant. And so I'm going to add compost a few times during this growing season, maybe every 2 to 3 weeks. So if you have any comments or questions about the process, especially, please add them to the comments section. I'd love to answer them. And if you have any tips and tricks yourself, go ahead and toss them in there too. I'd love to read about those. So we'll see you next time.